Our next guest, Phil Weiss of Argus Research, is the top-ranked analyst on BP, according to Bloomberg data. He just came out with a new report on BP, and Phil is joining us now from Baltimore. Phil, thanks so much for being with us. So you are getting even more pessimistic on BP. Is that right? What happens first? I mean, BP cuts its dividend, or CEO Tony Hayward either gets kicked out or steps down?
I think that the dividend's going to be cut as possibly as early as July, if not by October, and I think that's going to happen before Mr. Hayward loses his role.
Now, we've been talking about the stock, Phil, down 35%, and I'm looking at the London shares since April 20th. You say you still would not recommend that people buy stock at these levels. I mean, even with the improvement in the oil capture, why is that? Still too many unknowns?
That's exactly right. There's just too many unknowns. I think buying the stock here, if you have a short-term view especially, is just speculating because we still don't know so many things around the cost and what the damage is.
Now, what do you need to know and by when, Phil, to change your opinion? I mean, we know that BP is spending something like $27 million a day in its cleanup efforts, but as many other analysts have pointed out, and you as well, I mean, the company can afford it.
They can. I think the first thing that I really need to see is that the relief wells that they're drilling, they're successful with that, and that's the way that they stop the oil, and that we don't have hurricanes that put that off even further than the August date that we're looking at right now.
So that represents one of the unknowns that you're referring to, is if there is a hurricane season that makes the situation somehow worse, that BP could incur even higher costs.
That's correct.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about some of these uncertainties. Anything else that you see aside from hurricane season? I mean, do you feel confident so far in the way that the cleanup effort is going, at least from the part of BP? Of course, we saw a string of failures for the company, but it seems like it's going better.
It does seem like it's going better. Now we're collecting a lot more oil than we were before, which is definitely a positive, but we still have some oil coming out. But the fact that the LMRP is working is a positive sign, but now we have to be able to see that continue to work, and like I said, in the relief wells be successful.
Phil, something else that people have spoken about is that BP's share has fallen so much, again, this 35% since April. What are the chances that a big or a peer could be interested and be successful in taking over BP? Would anybody want to touch it right now, an Exxon or a Shell, for example?
I really don't think that they would, because these uncertainties that I'm talking about, any company that acquired the shares of BP would be stepping into BP's shoes, and they would assume those exact same liabilities, and I don't see why they'd want to do that.
Even at a bargain basement price?
That's right, because the other thing you have to factor in here is that all the large oil companies, what they need to do is grow reserves and grow production on an organic basis. And if you add BP's production, which is like 4 million barrels of oil equivalent a day, well, that's going to give you an even bigger base to grow off of, and it's going to make achieving further growth even harder.
Phil, when we started the conversation, I asked you, which was more likely, the dividend cut, which you said is the case, versus Tony Hayward stepping down. What is the most likely scenario for him? I mean, as soon as the cleanup effort is clearly underway and stable, then does he leave?
I do think that at some point it seems likely to me that he'll leave, and if not him, then maybe somebody like Lamar McKay, who was head of the U.S. operations, because when you have an incident like this, it's going to have to cost somebody a job, but I don't see any point or any value in kind of changing horses midstream. I think that we need to wait till we have a little bit more clarity around the situation, and then I think it would be the time that we'd have some type of change.
Phil, I have to ask you for a short answer, but would you then recommend buying the stock if Tony Hayward were out?
Well, that would be one thing that would help, but still we need to have a little bit more clarity around what's going on.